extremely important to create common agendas for future between young people, especially because Balkan countries in the eyes of the world are like really lovely, but small countries. And our influence can be stronger only with common agendas on that alliances. Young people will have a vital role in that, in creating the dialogue. Because in the end, we're the ones that will be living here, creating our future and our destiny here in the Balkans, inshallah. The solution here, where we don't really have understanding on some issues, and I mean there are countries that survived aggression and genocide, is in creating a unique platform for a dialogue with relevant stakeholders and leaders of religious communities, with action and presence of young people and from political parties. You have Najmet in Erbakan that says, I will paraphrase that, with the Muslims that are not really interested in politics will be governed by the non-Muslims interested in politics. We live in a democratic society and we can't run away from the politics, and the solution is to be the active part and the leader in that process. Through this platform that I mentioned, we should create some kind of formal social contract and obligation for continued dialogue if we want to have a dialogue and prosperity on issues we don't agree in the Balkans. It is of utmost importance for the Balkans to respond to challenges of migrations, employment, better lifestyle, education, or healthcare system. But the fact is, unfortunately, a precondition of anything in the Balkans for any normal and constructive dialogue and any normal and constructive action is peace. And it's always like questionable, even these days in the Balkans. Maybe some of the suggestions I made today are utopic, but as would Ali Izetbegovic Ahmed said, utopia we believe stops being utopia. This is for me from now. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Mr. Haris Shabanovic, regarding your thoughts and opinion on the topic, which is related to the Balkans youth and the agenda of sustainability development. I had the opportunity to take some important notes from your speech, which I will stress. The first one, which was better cooperation between people, between different ethnic groups and different religious groups, which is characterized the Balkan region. If we want to have a better future for the young generations and better perspective in the next years. And the second point, which take me, my intention was the creating common agenda for cooperation, which is very important for the Balkan Peninsula, and this kind of forums can be a good starting point to discuss about these issues and to have this kind of networks between young leaders, the future leaders of this region. And thank you once again. Later we will have again space to discuss these issues. I mean, participants can ask questions regarding these things that you had the opportunity to raise during your speech. Thank you once again, and we will give space to the second panelist, Mr. Evren Tok, Associate Dean of Innovation and Community Engagement from the Hamad bin Khalifa University. Mr. Tok, are we here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much, Mr. Mehmedi, and
it's your floor.
Thank you. I appreciate. And also, it was really fantastic to first get the wonderful insights from Mr. Haris Shabanovic. It was very inspirational, and I am glad that some of the areas that I will touch now are going to be quite like interrelated to his very insightful and significant items that he emphasized. So I am kind of like, even for short presentations, I prefer to be visual. I am a big proponent of human-centered design, and I try to kind of like show things a bit like a like in a bit visual way. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen, and I want to share with you few areas that might be actually. Can you see my screen now? Can anybody confirm, because I cannot
Yes.
see anyone? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Dr.
Okay.
We can see. Thank you.
Okay. Great. So what I want to show you today in 5, 6, 7 minutes actually is to like my colleagues talked about cooperation, and my colleagues talked about the importance of a dialogue and the importance of collective action. And I want to talk a little bit about our Maker Measures platform. This is a maker space, essentially designed to be a space for the youth to come up with solutions to the global challenges we all face in today's world. And we call it Maker Meclis because it's not any space. It's not any space that we make things, but it's the Meclis area, which is in the Khaliji Arabic terms, it's the area where people deliberate. It's like an open informal space where people share ideas and discuss, find consensus and deliberate, and it's a form of civic engagement. So we were quite influenced by this maker movement in the world, which is primarily quite based on STEM education, which is science, technology, like engineering and math, but also arts and sciences, arts and humanities, social sciences have an important role, or religious studies have an important role to play when it comes to making a new world, which is more fair, which is more sustainable, and which is more inclusive. So this was our kind of like an original idea. So what we try to do is we try to create a space which brings together 3 key elements. The first one was Sustainable Development Goals. Second one was Qatar's National Vision to 2030. And then afterwards, the role of faith. And in our case, obviously, it's the case of Islam, how Islam, Sustainable Development Goals, and Qatar's National Vision come together. And we kind of envision a world and the role of Islam in a global world where the youth is empowered to make things instead of being the recipient of already produced knowledge, which is often asymmetric and not entirely like neutral. So in this framework, in this platform, we had 3 objectives. We wanted to see what are some Islamic and faith-based perspectives in terms of global goals of United Nations. What is the relationship between Islamic ethics and global citizenry? What are some global opportunities and leadership when it comes to raising awareness about global goals, and how can the Muslim world, the Muslim youth can be more empowered if they embark on the importance of the global goals? How can it be a platform? And then of course, synergies and networking. And this is kind of obvious because it's fostering innovations through fostering collaborations through SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. It is a form of community building. But why this community building is a little bit like sluggish actually in the case of the Muslim world, whereas in other parts of the world, it's going with a stronger pace. So our educational design was quite comprehensive. I will share with you the photographs, but I just want to start with our cartoonistic animation first to give you the idea. So what we did was we created a space where outside of our building, Qatar Red Crescent, part of International Federation of Red Crescent, they built a real-like refugee camp with a hospital. So first, in 4 days, more than 2,000 students in Qatar, they came to our building. First, they visited the refugee camp, which is like a simulation of it, but it's almost real with the tents and everything, where they understood and realized and kind of acquired the experience, of course, in a simulated way, from the perspective of refugees. What are some of the problems? What are the challenges in just about registering to a refugee camp itself is a big challenge. And then inside we use some UNICEF's virtual reality documentaries to better understand what it is like to be like on the ground, and specifically one documentary that we actually used with VR sets to our students, so they almost felt like they are on the field. Was something called Clouds Over Sidra, which was specifically about the Azraq camp, and from the perspective of a 12-year-old girl, what it means, what it feels like to be in a refugee camp. We had actually Doha debates. They have this shared studios where every day we connected to the refugee camps in Lesbos in Greece, in Bangladesh, in Turkey, in Syria, and Iraq, in different parts of the world. And our intention was, of course, like empower the youth and see what kind of things they can produce. So during these 4 days, we organized a hackathon where we had some projects which actually got incubated in later stages, and all of them had a kind of like a faith-based element, and also an element that was connected to the SDGs. We had a comic zone where we showcased some interesting comics made by a group of individuals led by Stan Lee earlier. And these are all about introducing the SDGs. As I told you earlier, we wanted to make sure that the commonality of the students was they were all coming from a specific context, and in this context, we wanted to showcase the importance of faith. For instance, we tried to show how specific SDGs like SDG 10 inequalities, we can bring some Islamic perspectives to it from Quranic sources or Hadith and other Islamic knowledge, like climate action, again, specific connection, or zero hunger, or responsible consumption production. So this was actually our program in 4 days. And we finished it with a nice SDG award ceremony where we actually nominated different groups in Qatar, different initiatives in planet prosperity, peace, and partnership, and we provided awards. These are some photographs. So what we wanted to do was, faith itself is important, but experiential learning is also important. So if you want to empower the youth, we need to let them try. We need to let them experiment with reality. So our makerspace, which is Maker Measures, was a trial to show the youth different techniques, different frameworks, different processes, so they can actually try to learn about the reality on the field, as opposed to just theoretical knowledge. So these are some photographs from our event, and this is part of the refugee camp. So the student, as a potential refugee, is getting her blood pressure checked in the refugee hospital. These are some of the talks. These are like short halakha talks, different youth. We had 35 talks actually in 4 days. Some of the actually experimental games and some of the oral history exhibitions of students about gender equality. Our big board and measures area where they played SDG games, and big area, if there was one positive change in the world, what would it be? And this gentleman is the Director General of Qatar Red Crescent. And so basically we kept going even in the COVID period. We designed another program called Maker Measures Design Post-COVID Humanity, Ta'aruf, Ta'awun, and Tarahum, which translates as acquaintance, cooperation, and mercifulness. So the entire program was built around these 3 prophetic Quranic values. And now we are starting a new program called Shifa, which will be about science, innovation, and faith for human dignity. So I can share with you more details, but I know for the sake of time, I'll just stop here. But overall, we are trying to build a connection between faith and sustainable development goals, and empower the youth to take action that really creates impact to make the world a more fair, more sustainable, and more inclusive place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Evren, talk about your presentation and the colorful presentation with your experience on different projects regarding the sustainable development, and how can youth, from your perspective, can take as a experience and do or take different initiatives which can be useful in realizing projects. But what's interesting for me is the moment that you mentioned the collective action, which is very important point in which all of us, including the panelists and staff, can take as a reference, let's say, to discuss also here, and also after the forum, the other participants can take as a reference, as a positive outcome about the future cooperations. I will because Mr. Albert Hani will not join to this panel because he probably has some technical problems joining in the Zoom meeting. Now I will give space to the participants to ask a question or to raise debate regarding the topic. So we will have around 15 to 20 minutes about the second part, in which participants will have the opportunity to ask the questions and the panelists to answer or to reply to the participants. So please, participants who wants to ask question or to raise any debate regarding that, just raise the hand, or eventually you can write the question in the part of the box of the messages. Do we have any question to the panelists?
I'm now afraid that we were boring to them. Anything interesting material to them. So or we were really clear, so that they don't have anything to add.
Actually, we have the first question by Mrs. Dilara Unal. Mrs. Dilara, it's your floor.
Actually, firstly, I want to say thank you for Professor, and also I'm interested in human-centered design and working currently in the center which are working for social impact projects. And I believe that we as Muslims can change environment with those type of projects which are more human, and I mean, we can do it with design and innovation. Just I want to say thank you. It was really clear, and I hope we will connect on email. I just want to say thank you.
Okay. Do we have another comment or additional question? As I saw from the messages we have from Muniro from Suhaib Hassan saying a question, which is, I will read from here: how Balkans can play their role for the sustainable development goals. So this is the question. So if Mr. Harris or Mr. Professor Evren Tok can answer to this.
I'll do this.
Yeah.
I was explaining this on General Assembly of the ICYF one month ago. I see my friend Zakaria Berisha is also listening to us here today, and I hope he will also come to the story because he really has a lot to say. Balkans is a really specific area, not really much big area, but for some reason, it is geopolitically one of the most important points in the world. When the Roman Empire went to Eastern and Western, it was by River Drina, that is today a natural border between Bosnia and Serbia. And that was the line of the war and the aggression and the line of the genocide. When the Church went to the Orthodox and the Catholic, it was also divided by the same border. And it's, for some reason, for centuries and thousands of years, happening in the Balkans. For us today, it's maybe not really understandable why it's happening today, which world clashes are happening today in the Balkans, but they are obviously happening. I am by degree, and I have a degree in economics, but I'm a full-time politician for now. So it's like my subject. Sustainable development in the Balkans, the main thing, I said that on purpose, it's peace. Always like a glass, you can with one wrong move, with one wrong word, you can break it all. The sustainable development of the Balkans at this area, it is really important to have cooperation between the countries in the Balkans, but also in the strong alliances. I was talking about the agendas. So if we have like 7 or 8 Balkan countries with the common agenda in the EU tomorrow or in the NATO, you can have a stronger impact. If you're going go it by itself, like Bosnia with 3.5 million people, 2 million from there are Muslims, that it's not some really big impact. But if you have 8 or 10 countries, that's a bigger impact. For this moment about the EU or NATO or stuff, you have, for example, an info that Macedonia is 16, Northern Macedonia is 16 years a candidate member for the EU, 2 times having veto on the membership. So if you don't have strong partners inside, you will not have that help you need. I'm talking to this because I said in start, the Muslim story is so different from place to place, and it's really necessary to find a common goal and common agenda on all that stories. And to keep it short, different areas, different problems, different perspectives. Europe, North America, South America, Australia also have Muslim people, Muslim communities. And I think the story of OIC and the ICOF to bring all of that Muslim people on one place and on a common agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shabanovic. I saw before that Saeda Mohammed raised the hand about asking questions. So Saeda, can you ask the question, or I can read the other questions from the box? Also, we have a question by Irma.
Hello.
Irma? Okay.
Hello. First of, this is Saida from Jordan. First of all, I would like to ask all the presenter who give us all this firm and this rich information about Balkan. My question was sustainable development goals, and he answered my question. That's why I'm lowering my hands.
Okay.
The most important thing which I have to say about the imagining on the future is this goal is more important before COVID-19 or before COVID-19. I thought it's more important now to make a frame for this goal for 10 years in the future. This was my question, and thank you all for this presentation.
Thank you, Mrs. Saida. Also, we can take one question more by Irma, and then we will give space to the panelists to answer the questions. Mrs. Irma?
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, assalamu alaikum everyone, and good afternoon also from Bosnia and Herzegovina. My question goes to Mr. Tak. I actually work in the international school here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and our mission is also revolved around the sustainability, green issues, and also peace. So my question, I have actually 2 questions for you. First one is, who are your target groups when working with youth on green issues, and how do you reach them? And the second one is, do you cooperate with organizations, schools in other areas? I mean, around the world.
Thank you, Irma. Mr. Shabanovic, Mr. Tan.
Shall I go ahead or?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for both questions. I saw one question written on the chat, and also the other question raised by Ms. Irma. I think both questions have some commonalities. One of them was asking about the best practices, and the other one was asking about our target groups. Actually, our target is quite diverse, and we have been organizing. So under Maker Measures platform, so far we have done 6 different initiatives, and I just shared with you the first one. The others were online, and now with the Shifa program, it's going to be blended. But the commonality is we are targeting diverse groups. Like we have targeted, for instance, high school students, we have targeted university students, graduates, and PhD students. We had also had some programs for students with special needs in Qatar. And so the idea here is that there are challenges that we globally face, and an important aspect here is to identify the commonalities in terms of responding to these challenges, because learning from each other, translating from or transferring a policy or as you mentioned in the chat, a best practice from one place to another is quite important. But what is more important is localization. Sustainable development goals are essentially 17 goals with 169 targets and 232 something like indicators. But at the end of the day, every single context, I'm not talking about a country, I'm talking about a context, a locality, even maybe like a municipality, maybe even a village, can create its own localized experience of SDGs. So it doesn't have to be the whole SDGs, but a specific example, a specific area could be the case. So my point here is the crux of the matter is how you create this articulation between this global framework and your local realities. So this, I believe, in general, is the most important best practice that we can derive from Maker Measures, to find your local realities and how these realities connect to other people's realities, and that creating that connection. And in the Balkans, I will be very honest, I'm not a Balkan expert, but when it comes to the Gulf area, I know or in the Middle East area, in North Africa, for instance, I can tell you more that despite religious commonalities, still it's very difficult to engage in capacity building. When it comes to moving together, when it comes to building institutions, when it comes to garnering, let's say, organizational capacity towards a common goal, it's not that easy. Politics come into your way, gets into your way. And like all other obstacles and challenges. So in that framework, a global target, a global anchor like Sustainable Development Goals really work very well, because it gives a lot of visibility to the students, student clubs, organizations. Even now today, if you look at some cities in the bus stops, you see like how their municipalities or that specific area is actually complying with SDG number 11, like an indicator number something. So now we are not talking about 17 goals that are out there, but we are talking about a mindset derived through, driven by the Sustainable Development Goals that is more like a new language. So that is the kind of the important part that we need to really understand, that it's not like Millennium Development Goals. That was maybe that's one of the pitfalls of Millennium Development Goals. It didn't really have this kind of localized flavor, localized energy to get on the ground and kind of affect people. So I believe that I try to explain as much as I can. But if anybody wants to learn more about Maker Measures, I shared the Instagram accounts, and I can share later if you want the YouTube account where you can watch some of our previous events. So I hope I was able to respond to their Irma's question.
Thank you a lot, Professor Tan. We have additional 3 questions written in the messages, so I will read, and then I will give space to the panelists to answer the question. So the first question is, do you think that sustainable development goals have given importance after the COVID-19 situation rather than before 2020? So this is the first question. The second question is by Musaddiq Mubarak from India, which he asked that how youth of the Balkans can play important role to minimize the corruption. And the third question by Mustafa Shehish from Bosnia, how we can influence the closure of bookmakers in the Balkan? What is the way?
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll try
Mr.
to
Shaban.
answer some of them. Can you
Okay.
only short me tell the Saida's question, because I lost
The last question.
the Saida's question.
Said's question was, we have Suhaib question, we have Musadik Mubarak question, and Mustafa Shehic.
Okay. I thought Saida had another question. Musadik questions about the corruption.
Mhm.
If you ask me, I think corruption was first made in the world in the Balkans. It's part of the tradition and folklore here. In the Balkans, it's the way of life. You have two ways of corruption: when you want to get something, and the other one that people is just get used to. Like when you go to the doctors, you got used to give some money to the doctor. Like just you do it. The only right way to fight the corruption is strict law solutions and serious punishment on those occasions. Nothing less. Like corruption is something that you can't punish with a few nice words or education. No, strict law regulations, zero tolerance to the corruption. It's only way to get it. Young people can do it by a strong democratic action, government action to the parliaments. And for young people, as a young politician, I have a problem. They always try to young people gives only some side-by stories and themes. Like young people shouldn't get in touch and in the fight with the serious problems. Corruption is one of that problems. So there is no reason why young people, through the strong democratic action, shouldn't get involved in fight with the corruption, and that's the only way. The COVID-19 situation showed these big alliances, showed all of their weaknesses. And when it came to the COVID-19, the most of the problems came back in the countries. The big alliances. I saw European Union on its knees during the COVID pandemic. So it was really important in that moment when you had country-to-country communication, people-to-people communication during the COVID pandemic, because the big alliances were really shredded by the COVID. About the bookmakers in the Balkans, that's a big industry today in the world. You can't close it. I would be happy, more than happy, and the happiest to do it this before today, not in the morning, today to do it. But that's a big industry today in the world. It's really making a lot of money. So I think you can't close it in the Balkans, but we can do it on minimizing the effects of that branch. And the right way to the country, you have two ways, like civil action by propaganda against the bookmakers and their business, and the other thing is government action and government action by taxes, to make big taxes on booking and winning money by booking, big taxes on it. It's there. That are the ways you can minimize it, but close, prevent. I'm not really sure. In the world of the 21st century like this, in the next 10 years, we won't be able to do it. And that are the three questions. Have I forgot anything, Denis?
I think that we answered the three questions raised by the participants. I will give space to ask question to Mrs. Aisha Salisu from Nigeria, and Mrs. Semanur Yontan from Turkey. And after that, we have, I think, two questions more written in form of messages, which I will read later after we reply to the questions to the participants that raise the hands. So, Mrs. Aisha, it's your floor to ask the question. Aisha, are we here? Okay, so we can continue with Semanur. We are not here. I think we have technical issues, so you can write a message, and after that I will read. So I will continue with the messages writing here. For example, Jobaril Karim Arman asks how Balkan youth can be more aware about their cultures and rights. This is the first question. The second question is from Abdullah Khateb. That ask how we can provide a permanent contact between the Balkan youth, and what do you prefer? This is the second question. And the third question is by Hilda Arisuti. The difficulty about the religious community to accept this globalization under the points of sustainable development goals, mostly in conservative areas, sometimes end up with a rejection, as we know from Samuel Huntington's book Clash of Civilization. So how we can compromise with this pro and contra? So these are the three questions asked by the participants. Mr. Tan, if you want to answer to these questions.
It's a talk, by the way. Talk.
Yeah.
Everyone talk. Yeah.
Everyone.
Just sorry, just to avoid any confusion.
Yes.
Thank you. No problem. So I can just try to kind of respond in general, because the previous question was also quite important, I believe. It was asking about what has changed during the COVID times.
Before and after.
Before and after. I think this is very important, because in the past, students said like the youth had a chance to just go on the street and kind of go to the field and go and do volunteership or be active, on the field. But then we were complaining that now the Generation Z, the Gen Z is a bit, like too digital, and they are born with the internet, and now they're just so much really kind of enmeshed in this kind of digital world. But now what we are seeing is that the Generation Z, we are also having a study actually in our college about #Islam, youth and Islam, social media and youth. What we are seeing here is like some of the early findings of the study is that now the Generation Z is appreciating being outdoors, is way more like going to the field more important than like being digital. And I think the youth, today's youth realized during the COVID times that the internet is full of garbage, and there's a lot of misinformation, fake news. We are living in a post-truth society. This became even more clear during the COVID, that we shouldn't believe everything we see, and like so much politicization, so much asymmetric information, fake news, and everything. So I think this was good, because sustainable development goals, part of it actually is about awareness. The part of it actually is about more cognition about the realities on the ground, rather than what other people are telling you in terms of what the reality should be, or dictating a specific course of action. No. So I think there's now the better and stronger space for empowerment, because the youth is able to differentiate between types of knowledge, and COVID played a role in it, I think. So, and the second question is, what about the religious communities and their encounters with? This is maybe not the clash of civilizations, but this is actually in general is true for any form of modernity or modernization effort against like localization, or against the cultural, more parochial culture, right? Like there's always a clash. but it doesn't mean that when the global and local, or when the modern and or the Western and Eastern, whatever you call it, when they encounter, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a clash. There are forms of complementarity. So SDGs is not necessarily reaching out to conservative groups or traditionalists or different ideologies that are fundamentally against the West or the modernity. But maybe there are ways for the governments, for education systems, for families, for schools to better explain and translate the rationale behind sustainable development goals and how it can be used as a form of mobilization. So the problem is not about sustainable development goals and whether they are taken in a kind of in an alien, in a kind of like in a disenchanted way by the locals. No, I don't think it's the case. The case is about creating a story, a local story, creating a narration of how this can actually make impact. So let me give you one example. When we go to the mosque, when a young member, a young individual goes to a mosque, what do you see? You go to a mosque as a form of, as part of your ibadah, as part of your prayer. But then, do you realize, or does that young individual, young mind realize the amount of water that's being wasted during ablution? So, you know, what I'm trying to say is that this has nothing to do. So sustainable development goals is creating a perspective about this common water problem in the world. And that problem is also in the mosque. So what we are trying to do in Maker Measures is, if you are a young individual and if you were to come up with a solution to better utilize this wasted water, what would you do? What kind of an educational exercise you would do? Would you innovate a new system to kind of use the gray water? So that is, even just one single example, you can come up with so many solutions. And this issue is not about a religiosity versus modernity. No, it's more than that. It's about human dignity. So I think that is the connecting part.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Evren. Haris, do you have any additional answer regarding to the questions that were raised before?
They were pretty concrete.
Okay.
With questions, just to find them. About
one of the questions was, for example, how we can provide a permanent contact between the Balkan youth, and what do you prefer?
There are two ways. Balkan has a lot of people, Muslim people, Orthodox, Catholic, Jewish, Roman people, etc. Very diverse groups. If we're talking about the cooperation of the Muslim people and the young Muslim people, it has to go to the religious communities. We have very strong Islamic community here in Bosnia, and that's one of the ways how we stayed alive and stayed Muslims during the communist period. I think that's the best way for Muslim people to be connected through the institutions. The first thing Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did when he came to Medina, if I think I got it right, it was to build a country, to build the institutions. We have our institutions and we have to get them stronger, better. So that's for me the best way, through the institutions, nothing parallel, nothing. You don't have to invent boiled water. We already had that, and we have to do it better every day. About the religious community in the conservative areas, clash of civilizations. I'm in a political party that is center-right, and because of that and that's because of I live in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it's always country by country. If I would live in Germany, I would be very probably socialist, somebody that is left-oriented. Or because of the Muslim people, it's not natural to be too far right oriented, and it's always about the community, and you have like 250 countries in the world, and it's every community and 1,000 peoples like Bosniaks, Croats, Serbs, Turkish, Armenian, Azerbaijani, and stuff like that. You have 1,000 group of people in the world, so much diversity, and you will have every that group has its conservatives. So it's not really easy to find a common area, but that is why is the dialogue the most important, because lecture of the Balkans, if you don't do dialogues, then you do the guns, and it's always better to shoot with the words and not use the guns.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shabanovic. Thank you very much, Mr. Evren. From the organizers of the forum, they told me that we are running by time, so that's why we have to close this session or this panel, the last panel, about the topic which was the Balkans, youth and the agenda of sustainable development. Very interesting thoughts, very interesting analysis and presentations by the panelists. I would like to express once again the gratitude to them both for their productive outcomes and informations that they share together with us. Also, I would like to thank the participants which actively asked questions about the topics that they were interested in, which were related to the topic that we discussed in this panel. So I will give now floor to the Mrs. Sumeyye Habiyuk about the next, let's say, activities which are part of the Balkan Youth Forum. So Mrs. Sumeyye, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, dear Mr. Deniz. Also, thank you so much, our dear panelists. It was such a comprehensive and fruitful